So here we are at 30 past the hour, so we'll go ahead and begin. I'd first like to say good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you might be located. And thank you for joining us for this installment of our next level webinar titled Agile Scrum versus Traditional Project Management. This webinar will be presented by one of our New Horizons leading instructors, Aubrey Kegler. My name is Brian Duncan, and I will be the MC for this event. If you have any questions, please make sure to put those in the chat box at the lower right-hand side of your screen, and Aubrey and I can work together to make sure that you can that he answers those throughout the presentation for you. This webinar, as is all next level webinars, is brought to you by New Horizons Computer Learning Centers. Who is New Horizons Computer Learning Centers? We're a worldwide training provider with flexible learning solutions covering a broad spectrum. We have 2,100 classrooms in over 56 countries with 3 million student days of training per year. With that being said, I'd now like to hand it over to Aubrey so he can do his portion of the presentation.
Well, good day, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Again, my name is Aubrey Kegler, and I am a regional instructor for New Horizons, and I am very happy to be here. First and foremost, who should attend this presentation? Any project managers looking to improve their skill sets, any business managers looking to either maintain or build competitive advantage in the marketplace, and anyone finding themselves working on projects needing some more information. Why? Well, we're going to try and give you a better understanding of what traditional project management and what Agile project management is. We're going to help to appreciate what the differences between those two differing approaches are, and to look at and understand both the weaknesses and the strengths. Now, having been a project manager for over 22 years, I am always looking to try and find better and more ways of being able to do my work, my career path. I've spent 27 years in IT, as you can see, 23 as a project manager, 10 years working with Agile within those 23 years. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to start off looking at what is a project from a best practices standpoint. Then we'll go over and look at what is traditional project management. Then we'll explore what Agile project management is. Then we're going to look at how we're going to compare the two. Where is one better than the other? And what are the weaknesses, what are the strengths? And then we'll have time for questions and answers. So, first off, our goals today is to provide you an introduction to both areas, Agile project management, traditional project management. Look at what are they, what are their values, what values do they introduce and when, and of course to answer your questions. So, a project, according to the PMBOK guide, the PMBOK guide is the Project Management Book of Knowledge. And this has been created by the Project Management Institute. I, by the way, am PMP certified, Project Management Professional. I have a master's degree in technical project, which was just about all projects, so having done it for many years, I don't consider myself an expert, but I do know a thing or two. According to the PMBOK guide, a project is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. I even gave you the reference there where you can find it in the PMBOK guide if you happen to have your copy with you. Temporary means that it has a start and an end date. Unique speaks to the fact that that unique product, service, or result that we're creating is meeting the requirements for our customers. There's a problem, there's somebody came up with a great idea, or there's a legislation coming down that needs to be dealt with. How do we deal with it? We create that unique product, service, or result. Now, that unique product, service, or result is our deliverable. The whole idea of projects is one thing and one thing only, and that is to create the deliverable. Creating it on time, on budget, and with a happy customer. Everything we do within projects is all about the deliverable. When we look at the difference between traditional project management and Agile, they both have in common the deliverable. They're both project management techniques. The deliverable is what we are shooting for in both approaches. It's putting something in the customer's hands that they will be able to use successfully. Now, when we look at projects as a whole, in traditional project management, everything you hear on this periodic table of project elements are aspects of our project. We need to look at the purpose, the goals of the deliverable, what is the scope, what risks are involved in the project, who are we going to have on the team. All of these different aspects in traditional project management have to be addressed. Traditional project management, very heavy in documentation. Up front, at the beginning of the project, we have to develop a bunch of documentations, our management plans. We'll speak to that in a minute. The whole idea for addressing these up front is because we have a body of stakeholders, customers, that, again, the PMBOK guide defines as any person or group that may be affected by or perceives themselves to be affected by a decision or outcome of the project. So we're talking about potentially a large body of people that may be affected by our project. The project manager, the project management team, other project management teams, the people that are the ones actually doing the work, we affect it. Everybody else in there is going to be affected by what we do. In traditional project management, we document how we're going to do everything up front. So we have our policies in place, we have our procedures in place, and that is established before we do anything with the deliverable. It's all about letting people know up front, here is what you can expect. Okay? Within projects, especially the traditional project management approach, we have the scope. The scope is a written documentation of what we feel is going to be the deliverable. It's what's going to meet the needs that the customers have at the point in time when we're working. When we have established the scope and when the customer agrees with us about that scope, and the customer signs off and says, yep, that's what we want you to build, that then becomes our scope baseline. And the baseline is what we're going to be measured against. Once we have a scope baseline, we then look at how long is it going to take us to do this and how much cost is going to be involved in building this work or doing the work of the deliverable. And when the customer agrees on our timeline and agrees with the cost, or we come to an agreement on time and cost, then those two become baselines as well. The scope baseline, what we've agreed with the customer we're going to build. The time or the schedule baseline is what we've agreed upon is how long we're going to have to do the work. The cost baseline is how much money they're going to give us to spend to actually do it. Now, I need to point out here that we haven't really built anything yet. We haven't designed anything. We are visualizing the deliverable and we are making some estimates of how much time and cost is going to be. The scope baseline, the time baseline, the cost baseline all come together to create the quality deliverable that is within the timeline that the customer is willing to wait and within the cost limits that they're willing to spend. All of that comes together, has to come together first before we can even start building our end product, our deliverable. Scope, cost, time. We used to call it the iron triangle because you couldn't affect one without affecting the others. If the customer changes the scope but doesn't give us more time and more money, they're affecting the quality. If we feel that it's going to take longer time, then we are going to affect the cost and quality. So however we change that, whenever we change the project, there may be an effect involved there. Okay. Within the project, the traditional project management, we have processes that we're going to use, and we have different phases of the project. And again, this is all based off of the Project Management Book of Knowledge, PMBOK Guide. The very beginning of the project, we are initiating, we're starting. Once we've initiated it, we then go into planning. There's about 24, 25 different processes we do within planning. Once we're through planning, we go into executing, where we're actually building the deliverable, actually making the end product. And then when we're finished with that, we go into closing, where we shut the project down. Across the bottom in the blue there, you see that our initiating ends when the project charter and the stakeholders have been identified. Project charter is a document, is our first official document in the project, and when the project charter is signed, we now have a project, and we have a project manager assigned to actually do the work of the project. Signing the charter ends, initiating moves us into planning. Planning ends once we have finished all the planning processes and we have our 3 baselines in order. Scope, cost, and time. Once they've been approved, we now know what we're going to build. We know how long they've given us to do it and how much money we have to do it with. So now we can actually move into executing. And we continue to execute until the deliverable has been accepted by the customer. Now, that area that you see in the gray around it, monitoring and controlling, is the quality aspects, where we're watching over what we're doing, making sure that we're creating the right deliverable for the customer. Once the customer has looked at it, has reviewed the deliverable, and says, yes, that's a done deal, we're happy with it, we'll sign off on it, we accept it, the work of the project stops. The work is done, and we automatically move into closing, and once the project is closed, we no longer have a project. Now, those 5 processes, initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closing, are the traditional model of project management. We plan, we initiate, we plan, we execute, we monitor and control it, and we close it. As a part of this, every traditional project has multiple life cycles. The project life cycle goes from the very beginning, when we have that initial area where we're doing some research, trying to understand what's being done, to the end of the project. The next life cycle, which the project life cycle is everything involved in the project, from the very beginning to the very end. Project management life cycle runs from the time the project charter is signed, when we now have a project, official project, and a project manager has been assigned. Project management runs to the end of the project. And again, when the project closes, everything stops, everything is over. The third life cycle there is the product life cycle, which typically starts when the scope baseline has been created, and the baselines have been created. We can now start building it, engineering it, and you'll notice that the product life cycle continues well past the project. That's because the project builds the deliverable. That's the whole purpose of the project. But when the project is over, once the customer has signed off on the deliverable, Our deliverable is then transferred to operations management, and they run it for the company for as long as that solution is still a good solution. So the product may live years past the project. Every traditional project we do, traditionally managed project, will have these three life cycles: project life cycle, project management life cycle, and the product life cycle. And again, according to PMBOK Guide, we have 47 different processes that we would use. This is a chart right out of the PMBOK Guide. There are 10 different knowledge areas that we would look at. This is the first 5, and we have in every cell where you see something, those are processes that we would be recommended to do. Traditional project management is very process-oriented. We start with develop project charter. We identify stakeholders, which is, you'll see on the next screen. And we develop project management plan, and we do all of the exercises, all of the processes that are in planning. Create work breakdown structure. There under scope management is where we would create our scope baseline. The develop schedule is where we're going to develop our schedule baseline, and determine budget. In cost is where we're going to develop our cost baseline. Once we have those, then we can move over into executing and start direct and manage project work. Monitoring controlling works with executing. They work together, so all of the processes in executing and monitoring controlling are being done at the same time. Once the project deliverable is complete, accepted by the customers, we move over into planning. Now these are the first 5 knowledge areas. This is the last 5. This is the rest of the processes. As you can see, there's 47 processes there that traditional project management, according to the PMBOK Guide, should use to accomplish the deliverable. An outcome of these is a lot of documentation, as I said. We have a project management plan that, according to the PMBOK Guide, we should have a minimum of 13 different management plans. 1 for each of the knowledge areas, and then some additional ones that PMI recommends. Now those are minimums. We may, as a project team, decide that we need more. The more documentation we have in traditional project management, the better it is, because that way everybody, all the stakeholders, can see and understand what we're doing, because we have created this documentation that guides and directs the whole project. The end result is our project management plan that says, from day 1 until the end of the project, here is everything we're going to do. We use Microsoft Project or Oracle's Primavera or any of the other project management softwares to help us with this. And from a project management standpoint, as a project manager, this is what I live and die by. I'm watching my schedule, making sure that all of the activities on there are being accomplished within the time frame, so that I can hand off that deliverable to the customer at the end of all this, finishing it within the timeline that we've been given, the schedule baseline, and having spent no more money than what we've been approved, the cost baseline. All of this has been developed, and yet we haven't created the first deliverable. Okay? Agile is the other side of this coin, where traditional project management is very process-oriented. It is very much geared towards following the different steps, creating documentation. Now, and again, traditional project management, we collect our requirements from our customers up front. The project team decides what to build, and the customer doesn't really see the end product until the end of the project. And what determines for them whether the deliverable is the right deliverable or not is, does it match the scope baseline that they signed? And if it does meet the scope baseline, well, then yeah, that's what we told you we wanted. Even though our requirements may have changed, we're still going with the scope baseline. Agile, on the other hand, is a completely different approach. And if we were going to define it, here is a great definition. Agile is a group of development methodologies based on iterative and incremental development, where requirements and solutions evolve through collaboration between self-organizing cross-functional teams. It promotes adaptive planning, evolutionary development, and delivery, and a time-boxed iterative approach, and encourage rapid and flexible response to change. Traditional project management hates change. I have a scope baseline. This is what I'm trying to build. Don't talk to me about change. If I have to change, I will, but it's going to cost you more money. It's going to cost you more time. So do you really want to do that? As a traditional project manager, I'm trying to build a deliverable. In Agile, we're evolving the deliverable. We recognize that the customer really may not know what they want as an end product. They know they have a problem. They know that there's something that needs to be done better. They know they need some help here. But as far as them being able to point their finger and say, this is what I need, not often can they do that. Agile is a methodology that harnesses change. We want change. Change is what helps us to stay up with what the customer needs. Now, incremental, iterative, collaborative, evolve, these are all words that you're going to see over and over and over when you work with Agile. Back in the early 90s, a group of software developers, Agile was developed through for software development and was used in that area for many, many years. It is now being ported over to all kinds of projects. Aircraft carriers have been built using Agile. Apple is a big adopter of Agile. Many of the computers, the Apple computers that we have built, were created under an Agile type approach. The software developers that got together and created, they had a long weekend meeting, and they came up with what is known as the Agile Manifesto, a statement of their values. The first concept that they came out with is that individuals and interactions over process and tools. Now, traditional project management is all about process and tools. We have to have our tools in place first. We have to have our processes. Again, PMBOK guide. We have our 47 processes that we can pick and choose from. And this is before we even know what we're delivering. What Agile says is that individuals and interactions need to come first. It's not that tools and techniques are not important, but tools and techniques should be there to support what the individuals and the interaction with those individuals has created. Working software over comprehensive documentation. And you could, instead of using the word software, you could just say working deliverable, because it works for both sides. It's all about creating an end deliverable, creating something to put into the customer's hands. It doesn't say we don't document, it says that we document after we have created the deliverable. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. In Agile, we work daily with the customer. It's more important to work with the customer and understand their needs than it is to negotiate contracts. If we need a contract, yes, we're going to do that. But it's through collaboration with the customer. It's not us as a team going out and just deciding we need it. We're working with the customer to understand their needs. And lastly, responding to change over following a plan. As I said, as a traditional project manager, my life was my plan. I knew what I was going to be doing for the next X number of days based on my project plan. Here's what we're doing today, here's what we're going to do tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that, and the day after that. In Agile, there is no plan. We are working with the customer, building for the customer, bits and pieces to fit their requirements. When we talk about iterations in incremental, in traditional project management, we create a plan and we follow that plan, and sometimes that is called waterfall because we do the initiating, then we drop to the next step, which is planning, then we go to executing, then we go to closing. All of those steps make up the full project. That project may be several years long, and the customer may not see any deliverable until the end of that project. When we talk Agile, we're talking about iterative, meaning we're doing iterative and incremental, we're doing small periods of work, generally 2 weeks to a month, in which we initiate, we plan, we execute, and we close. In this case, they're saying discover, design, develop, test. Our first cycle, sprint 1, which is called a sprint because it's a short period of time and we have a fierce working ethic getting the work done. The whole idea is to put some type of working deliverable into the customer's hand for them to look at the end of each sprint. So if these are month-long sprints, at the end of each one of these sprints, we have taken requirements, we have built something. The customer then at the end of the sprint looks at it and says, yeah, that's good, but you know, it would be better if you did this or that. So we're taking all that and we're using their suggestions and implementing them in the second sprint and the third and the fourth until the customer says, you know, this is it, we're done. You guys did a great job. So every aspect of a traditional project, which would be one whole project, we implement each one of those phases in each one of these sprints, each one of these iterations. We're doing a mini project delivering a smaller piece of the deliverable in each one of those sprints, involving the customer, putting working deliverable in their hands. When we talk about evolutionary development, I found this and I thought this was a good example of it. At the beginning in the 1800s, when somebody lost a leg, they were given a peg leg. Over the years, technologies have changed, materials have changed, and until today, that peg leg has evolved into a very lifelike prosthetic. In this case, the silicone that is the sleeve that holds it in place is very skin-like, and it works with the skin very well. Lightweight polymers, lightweight carbon materials, carbon springs that give people more of that lifelike movement. This is exactly what we're doing when we do sprint. We start off with a piece and we start evolving the rest of the deliverable over each one of our sprints. Okay? The whole idea here is for us to be able to understand the customer's needs and build toward that. Now, one thing about in business is the customer's needs change. Businesses have competitive advantage because they are better able to meet the customer's needs. If a customer's needs change, the business has to adapt to that. The quicker the business adapts to meet the new customer's needs, the greater the competitive advantage. If you as a business, if you can adapt faster than your competitors, chances are you're going to get more of the business. As we are evolving the solution, if a change comes in, we can now react to that change and change the deliverable to meet the new environment. That is some of the beauty of Agile. We are living for the change instead of trying to resist the change. We recognize that that brings in some great strengths to the business. Iterative, because each iteration we do, we're doing all of the different aspects of a traditional project only in a much smaller time frame, and we're creating a smaller piece of deliverable. At the end of each iteration, we give it to the customer for them to play with, for them to look at. We want you to break it. Tell us how we can make it better. What are your new requirements? Is this what you think is a good approach? Yes? No? There is no failure here. If we haven't done the right job, we'll come back in the next iteration and we will redo it. We continue to do this, evolving the deliverable and making the changes as necessary. Agile is a framework of concepts, those values that we just talked about, that companies can use. Now, methodologies are approaches by which we apply the Agile mindset. And one of the ones that is the most popular around the world is called Scrum. Scrum is a term from rugby, and the aspect behind Scrum is that here we have a Scrum. This is a picture of a Scrum. And what happens here, instead of a hike, or we have a quarterback standing behind the center, he gets the ball and puts the ball into play. The way rugby, as I understand it, puts the ball into play, both teams line up and interlock themselves as a solid mass. The white is pushing against the red is pushing against the white. Number 9 that's squatted down there, he has the ball, and he's getting ready to pitch it into that group of people. Whichever team can push the other team out of the way gets control of the ball. They're using their arms, their legs, however they can to get control of the ball. Once that ball is in control of one of the teams, they all break up and they all start running toward whoever the team that has the goal runs, the ball runs towards their goal, passing it back and forth, handing it off, kicking it, doing whatever they can to get the ball to the end. The concept in Agile that we're using is this is how we do development work. We do development work by everybody on the team being responsible for helping to build the deliverable. It's just not the quarterback that makes the score. It's not the ends or the halfback or the fullback that's running it. Everybody on the team is responsible for moving the ball down the field. Same thing when we talk about our Scrum teams, we're doing the same thing. We are trying to accomplish the goal as a group. Scrum teams, we have a small team, 5 to 7 people generally. We have the development team, the 4 or 5 people in the middle. We have a Scrum Master who is the servant leader. They're not in control, by the way. They're not the boss. There is no boss. There is no project manager in Scrum. It's all about everybody being equal. Scrum Master is there to assist the team in any way possible. The product owner relates to the customers. They're getting the information from the stakeholders for the requirements. Both Scrum Master and product owner are working with the business owner to help get this accomplished. The Scrum team is working with the customers on a daily basis to understand their needs. The process that they go through, the requirements that the product owner gets, they put on what is known as the product backlog. The business prioritizes those requirements. The Scrum team then takes the prioritized items, determines what can they build in the time frame they have, the Scrum, or the sprint, 2 weeks to a month. What can we do with those prioritized items, those prioritized requirements? Once they understand what they can build, they then go into the sprint. They spend the full time creating the deliverable that meets the requirements that have been prioritized by the business. The whole time is intensive development, creating an end product that meets those priority needs. Every day we have what is known as a daily scrum, or a daily stand-up. This is the only meeting that the Scrum team has where the customers are available. Scrum team is where each team member designates what work they have done yesterday, what work they're going to do tomorrow, and what problems are they having. That's the only 3 things they talk about. Customers are invited to the meeting. They can hear the status, they can see the updates, but they're not allowed to ask questions. This meeting is overseen by the Scrum Master, but it's only an update meeting. There's no technical discussions here. The whole idea is, what did I do yesterday, what am I going to do today, and what problems am I having? Agile is very lean, has very little documentation, has very little reporting, and has very few meetings. The emphasis is on development. Traditional project managers, we would have status meetings every week. In fact, many times I would have more meetings than I was able to have in hours in a day. Purpose of the daily scrum is to answer these questions. What did you do yesterday? What are you going to do today? What work did you accomplish yesterday? What work are you going to do today? And is there anything in your way? Not status meetings. These are commitments in front of your peers. Everybody on the team commits to doing the work that's there. So, project management, traditional project management, very process-driven. And there is a team involved, but the team is focusing on documentation, development, and then building, all away from the customer. The customer is involved at the beginning of the project and at the end of the project. When we start looking at comparing the 2 approaches, in Waterfall, which is the traditional project management, the features are fixed. From those features, we understand how much time it's going to take, how much cost it's going to take, and quality is affected by all 3 of those. Agile, we know the features, and the cost, the quality, and the time are fixed into sprints. When in traditional project management, we have to inform the company how long is it going to take and how much money is it going to take, so that the accountants can make sure that we have all that money available. In Agile, we don't know how long it's going to take, and we don't know how much money it's going to cost, because that is dependent on the customer and the requirements that they give us. Here are some generalizations. In Waterfall, all the details, the specifications are declared up front. We collect them up front. We detail them. In Agile, the details and the specifications of our deliverable emerge. We don't know them at the beginning. Teamwork, linear, hands-off. One team does initiating. We may have a second team that does the planning, a third team that does this. It's a handoff. It's kind of like a relay race. We do our segment, then we hand off it to somebody else, then they do their segment. In Agile, cross-functional and collaborative. One team working intensely with the customer moves down toward the end deliverable. In Waterfall, change requests, very formal process, and the requests are implemented when they're approved. In Agile, change requests are welcome, they're prioritized by the business, and they're put into the product backlog to be done. By the way, when we're in traditional project management, we're looking at the total end deliverable. So we're looking at the end product as a whole, where Agile is looking at it in individual pieces that evolve into something that meets the needs. Customer user involvement, Waterfall, it's at the beginning and at the end. We gather your requirements, then we go away, we develop a product, and we bring it back to you 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, 2 years later, and say, here is what you asked for 2 years ago. Many times the needs have changed. They will accept it because, yep, that's what the scope said we wanted, but now we're going to have to make changes to it. Customer involvement through Agile is throughout the whole cycle. Little note down there, Scrum is the most popular Agile method. 74% of all Agile practitioners use Scrum. There are about 14 different approaches to applying Agile. Scrum is the one that is the most commonly used. In comparing traditional to Agile, traditional team, we have a project manager who is responsible for the success of the project. The team members have been handpicked for their skills, their abilities, their knowledge. They all report to the project manager. The project manager uses these people as subject matter experts, and they create the plan, the project plan. They create the management plans, how we're going to do it, the documentation. They work together to create the scope, the cost, and the time baselines. And then the project manager creates the project management plan that everybody follows, the Gantt chart, the bar chart of how all of the activities are tied together. That becomes the rule by which we work. Each individual on the team has certain activities that they do. Once they're through with their activities, then they're done with the team. If one person only had 5 activities and he's finished with, or she is finished with that activities, then we no longer have a need for them and they're off the team. We're finished when the deliverable is finished. When we're at the end of our project plan and there's no tasks left, then it's ready. We're ready to show the customer the end product. Agile, on the other side, these are self-organizing teams, cross-functional self-organizing teams. There is no boss. There is no project manager. The team as a whole makes the decisions. The Scrum Master, the servant leader, is there to assist the team, but the servant leader only serves by the selection of the team. The self-organizing team nominates somebody, often as the Scrum Master. They are provided with the power to do what they do because the team has allowed it. There is no assigned work. Everybody on the team can choose to do whatever it is they want to do, so long as it is working towards the end goal of the sprint. It's all about collaboration on the team. If I'm finished with my work, I don't just go home. I look around to say, who can I help? Who needs some help? What can I do? What can we do to make everybody successful? There are no stars on the Agile team. The whole team is the star. Success is when the whole team is successful. We have different management styles between traditional and project management. Project manager is in control, and they are the commander of the project. We tell people when to do things and what to do. We ensure they have the resources they need. We make sure that they are available, and we are like the air traffic controller, making sure everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing. Everybody reports back to the project manager on their progress. The team members, again, they work for the project manager to get the end results. Agile, self-organizing, there is no project plan. We have a Scrum task board. For each sprint, the team will select a certain number of activities that we need to do, and the team decides how to do it and what they're going to do. The design is done while they're building. It's very much on the fly, and Agile teams tend to work in small clusters, tight-knit rooms, so that they can have highly evolved communication approaches. Here is an approach where the top is requirements design, implementation, and verification. Document. We have the unverified end deliverable. Customers look at it, they approve it. Over the whole run of the project, we have done those 4 areas. In Agile, we do all 4 of those areas within each sprint. And again, the product evolves. It becomes the end product that the customer wants. There is no group of people that look at it and say, okay, it's done now. It's the whole stakeholder body that is determining whether it is done or not. All right, in conclusion, which one is better? Both approaches are extremely successful. Both approaches have been used for many, many years. Traditional project management goes back, possibly back to the building of the pyramids. Agile doesn't go back that far, but Agile is also very successful. I don't look at traditional project management or Agile as competing approaches. I look at them more as another tool in the toolbox. As a project manager, the fact that I can do traditional project manager is a great thing. Now that I understand Agile and I have used Agile, now I have increased my abilities. I can do it both traditionally and Agile. Traditional project management works wonderfully well if the customer understands exactly what they need. If they can portray to the project team, here is what we need, go build it, then that's where traditional project management can do its best work. If the customers really, don't know what they need, okay, Agile is a better approach because we take your requirements and we start building from the requirements. We show it to you very quickly so that you can make a determination, is this going to help, is this not, is this what you're looking at, is this the approach that we are following? If it is, great, we'll continue to build it. If not, we'll come up with another approach, far more flexible. The flexibility comes in because the customers don't understand the end product well yet. They may not even understand the problem well yet. Where they do, traditional project management works tremendously well. When we, as a part of what we do at New Horizons, we have several different classes for both traditional and non-traditional project management activities. Traditional project management class, Project Management Fundamentals, is a one-day introductory class. This is based primarily for people who have no project management experience but find themselves being pulled into more and more projects. Project Management Essentials is a 3-day class, and it also is introductory, but we're able over the 3 days to go into project management in a deeper way. This is geared to more people that have been in projects and want to know more, and perhaps want to, they think that they might want to follow that as a career path. Next, we have 2 certification preparatory classes. Certified Associate of Project Management, CAPM. This is a Project Management Institute program, a certification, where in this class we are helping people to understand at what level and what information do they need to know in order to successfully sit for that certification test and pass it. It's a 3-day class. It's based on the PMBOK guide, as we have been speaking about. Both the Certified Associate of Project Management and the PMP class, which is the next one, are very, very hard certification tests. And they are both based off of not only knowledge of the PMBOK guide, but being able to show a level of competence in applying that material. Certified Associate of Project Management, entry-level certification, again, for people that are looking at project management as a career path. This is a certification that is very well accepted across the industry. Project Management Professional, PMP, again, this is, that's mislabeled. It says 3 days. It's a 5-day class. That's my mistake. I should have corrected that. It's a 5-day class where we are, again, exposing the class participants, our students, and delving into the PMBOK guide in a much deeper way to help them get the competency they need to pass the test. The PMP is based on experienced project managers. Some of the requirements are that you have to have, if you have a bachelor's degree in PMP, you have to show 4,500 hours of leading or directing a project. If you don't have a bachelor's degree, it's 7,500 hours. So it is based for people that are experienced project managers. We also, on the Agile side, teach Introduction to Agile Project Management, a 1-day introductory class for people that don't have much project management experience but are finding themselves getting more and more into Agile projects. Agile Essentials is a 3-day project class, and it again delves into the world of project management in a deeper way. And we will now open up for questions if there are any for the rest of the time.
Yeah, there are. I'll read, there's some questions in here. So the first question is, with limited documentation in Agile project, what happens when the team members leave and you don't have a lot of documentation to go back for support?
Well, I didn't mean to say, and if I did, I want to correct that. It's not that we have limited documentation. The documentation comes after we have built. Agile recognizes that you need documentation because someone else will follow behind. But instead of, as in traditional project management, we do the documentation up front and all the planning up front, and then we do the building. In Agile, we do the building, and as we're building, we're doing the documentation. So the documentation is there. It's just what aspect is more important. In Agile, the actual developing of the deliverable and then the documenting of it is a more important approach.
Okay, thank you. The next one is Agile a better solution if the team is focused on one initiative at a time rather than focused on many projects or tasks?
As a design feature, Agile is always going to be focused on, within each sprint, a smaller set of design initiatives. We're choosing as a team which one of the items on the product backlog has the customer said is most important to them. In Agile, we're keying on what the customer says is important, as opposed to us as a project team looking at how can we get it all done. So the fact that you may have, in both Agile and traditional project management, you're going to be focusing on a lot of different things. Agile allows us to focus our in-product development based on what the customer is saying is important. And yes, Agile does help with that quite a lot.
So what if you are one resource working for many customers? Does that put you at risk? Does that put a risk on the Agile approach?
Well, again, this was a high-level overview. One of the concepts that I didn't go over is that when we're on an Agile team, the Agile team should be the main source of your work on that daily in your job. Everything you're doing is that Agile project. We have the product owner is the one that is working with the customers and is organizing that work. As a feature of Agile, if you're a resource on an Agile team, you don't have multiple customers. You have the product backlog that you're working from, which is produced by the product owner in conjunction with the customer and the business owner. Okay.
Thank you. How detailed must you be in reporting your hours for leading a project?
In which approach? Did they say?
They don't. I'm wondering if they mean in regards to applying for the PMP exam.
Well, if it's in relation to PMP exam, there are some guidelines that up on the PMI.org, the Project Management Institute, there is a PMP handbook which documents that very, very well. Also documents the process. They also define what leading and directing means. You have to be rather specific, not exactly minute for minute what you have done, but I worked 5 hours doing planning on project such and such as a team lead. Okay. They want to ensure that you have the experience, but they don't have the time to get into all the nuts and bolts of it. Hopefully that helped.
I'm sure. In Agile, is there still a need to define exactly what the complete product is going to be before the sprints start?
Well, again, let's talk some definition there. When we talk about the end result, in Agile, we don't know what the end product is going to be. We have no idea what the final product is going to turn out. We're working from the requirements on each sprint, and in each sprint, we have an idea of what we're going to build even before we start through discussion with the team. And we can see these 5 different requirements. We can use those to create this type of an approach. We then start developing it as a part of the sprint, and the end result may come out somewhat different than what we thought. But no, it's not a requirement that we know what the end product looks like, because generally we don't know what it looks like.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. We're actually approaching the end of our time right now. So it was supposed to be for 1 hour. What we have at the end here is a survey. If you want to go, anybody whose questions that we didn't get to, if you could put them in at that survey where they're asked if there's any additional questions or any additional notes, we can make sure that Aubrey answers those for us and for you, and I can get you a response for all of those questions. Also, at this time in the handout section, I will be uploading a copy of the slide deck for everyone to be able to download, as well as we will be sending out a follow-up email later today with a link to the recording, which will take you to our YouTube page, where you can find this webinar's recording, as well as a catalog of past webinars for reviewing. I'd like to thank all of you for taking part in our webinar today. I'd like to thank Aubrey for his time to present on this great topic for us. So at this time, I'd like to thank you all once again. And like I said, on the survey, once I close the webinar, if you could please just put your questions in there, we can work to get you the answers for those.